I got an email from someone named Chelsea that I'd love to read and then get your guys' thoughts on. Chelsea says, I'm having a lot of trouble understanding how people can feel strongly they are male or female because I realized I don't experience that. I don't have a strong urge that I'm female in any way other than I have a vagina, ovaries, uterus, and breasts. I feel like if I woke up one day and my brain was in a quote unquote male body, then I would be male. I'm trying to understand, does this mean I'm non-binary? For what it's worth, I've never stuck closely to gender norms and have always worn both men's and women's clothes. I have had long curly hair at times and short cropped hair at others, etc. When I was younger, I had times when I was mistaken for a boy and it never bothered me. So the too long don't read version, which she, or they, if it turns out to be they, graciously responded was, I don't have strong feelings about being a woman, even though I'm biologically female. Does that mean I'm NB? So, thoughts?
I think only Chelsea can really identify that. I mean, we can't really say, yep, sounds like you fit the criteria for non-binary.
We are not diagnosing. Yep. Yeah, no. I will say, I think that I will say, at least from what I have understood from conversations about gender with many cis people that I know, is that is a lot of cis people's experience of not having a strong sense of gender because that's never really been a question before, I guess. At least that's my understanding. From conversations that I have is like, well, this is what I have, and I've never questioned it, never pushed the envelope. I've never felt like I belong somewhere else, or I belong outside of this definition. So, guess I'm a woman. Like that at least that's my understanding, and I will say I certainly don't relate to that as an NB person. I don't relate to that at all, because my conceptions of who I am, the way I see myself, the way I feel, the way I wish to be perceived are all over the place. And sometimes that falls into a more feminine spectrum, but sometimes it really doesn't. So I guess all I can say is this is what I've heard from cis people, and my own experience does not relate to yours at all as an NB person. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, like Hanna said right off the bat, this is not something we can just tell you what you are or are not. That is totally something for you to figure out. And maybe having those conversations about gender with people of various genders is like, how do you perceive yourself? What to you makes you feel this way, that this is how you identify? Having those conversations and thinking about that for yourself might help bring you some clarity.
Yeah, as a cis person, I guess, I've been like, hey, I'm a woman, and I've never had anyone go, but are you sure? So it's not really something. And then being exposed to, different genders and identities growing up, I actually have had this thought, just like Chelsea, like, wait, but like sometimes I feel masculine. Does that make me non-binary? And it's like, well, I don't think so. And I mean, that's just kind of where it's at. I mean, I feel comfortable identifying as a woman, so that's how I identify. I don't think it takes a certain amount of criteria or anything. It's just kind of what you're comfortable with.
I love that. This is really cool for me, because I feel like I'm kind of gonna be in the middle of both of your responses here, which is I'm always advocating for, even if you are cis, like, think about it and kind of do what Hanna has done and say, well, okay, well, does this mean I like X, Y, and Z, or sometimes I feel this way? Does that mean that I am another gender? Because it's always good to know for sure, to check in with yourself, to have that conversation. And a lot of people, most people, statistically at least, will decide, no, actually, this is my gender and this is cool, and moving on, next question, please. And then there will be some people like me and like Rudy who kind of have that thought process, and that leads to a whole other conversation, right? And that can be very exciting. It can also be kind of scary and exhausting. So it's only a conversation that you should have with yourself when you're ready. Nobody is tapping their watch and saying, when's Chelsea going to figure this out? You do you do this on your time at your speed. There is also the possibility, and I want to acknowledge that, yes, a lot of cis people have this thought and then are like, I've never really thought about it. I don't really have strong ties to my gender. So I guess I'm cis. Another option, and going back to representing those oft overlooked A's, is that you might be agender, which is also a possibility. And that might mean that you simply don't have a strong tie to gender at all, and you really don't care about it. And you don't feel particularly like a woman, but also don't feel particularly non-binary or particularly masculine. Like, it could just be that that's your experience. And that is also something to look at if you are curious about that label. But all of that said, I want to stress that this is not an ontological question. We are not talking about something that exists outside of yourself as a concrete thing that you become. Right? This is a label that is descriptive of you, that is used for your benefit. So if you feel like saying I am NB because this better represents me to the world and I want to be seen in this way, congrats, you're NB. Go for it. Nobody's going to be telling you, again, you don't meet that criteria. But also, it's not a requirement. You don't have to take that label on. Even if you are feeling like your experience from other cis women is different, but you feel like you still prefer to be a cis woman, then that is what you should be. And it's a difficult shift to accommodate culturally when we start finding new words for things and building out that lexicon and saying, hey, guess what? There are more ways to describe yourself than you thought. And of course, the natural, question that comes next is, okay, well, this is how I've been describing myself. Is there a better word? Should I be describing myself as something else? And we need to get out of the mindset of should, right? Could you? Absolutely. Should you? Not really. It's up to you. So I'd say have this conversation with yourself. Maybe engage with some non-cis people, either online or in your friend group, and get their take. But ultimately, this is going to come down to whether or not the label serves you. And if it does, we're excited to have you. And if it doesn't, then, kudos, you have found who you are, and, have at it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Better understanding yourself is always a good thing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. There's no downside to that, I don't think.